The Forgotten Promise. The red sun cast long shadows across the once fertile plains of Nebraska, now transformed into vast alien crop fields stretching to the horizon. Mira Kendrick wiped sweat from her brow, her calloused hands pausing briefly before returning to the monotonous task of harvesting the purple tuberous plants that the Calvary considered delicacies. At 32, she was already considered middle-aged among the human laborers. Few survived past 50 in the agricultural sectors. The constant exposure to alien fertilizers took its toll on human lungs. Move faster, mammals. The collection vessels depart at sundown. The overseer's voice crackled through the implanted receivers all humans were forced to wear. Commander Trax, a 7-foot Calvary with iridescent blue scales and 4 eyes positioned around a triangular head, surveyed the fields from his hovering platform. His lower set of arms held a neural whip, ready to discipline any worker showing signs of rebellion or exhaustion. 73 years had passed since the Calvary arrived in Earth's orbit. They came not as conquerors initially, but as benefactors, offering technological solutions to Earth's climate crisis. Only when their true numbers were revealed, massive generation ships carrying millions of their kind, did humanity understand the deception. By then, Earth's major military installations had been neutralized by precisely targeted strikes. The resistance lasted barely 8 months before formal surrender. "The quotas increased again," whispered Damon, a young man working the row beside Mira. His voice was barely audible, even in the open field, a necessary precaution. The receivers in their ears transmitted everything to Calvary monitoring stations, but they had learned to speak so softly that the devices couldn't pick up their words. "Third time this season." Mira nodded without looking up. "They're shipping more off-world. Something's changed." The Calvary Empire spanned 12 star systems, according to the propaganda broadcasts humans were forced to watch each evening. Earth was merely their newest acquisition, valued for its biodiversity and human labor. The aliens considered themselves benevolent masters, often reminding humans they could have simply exterminated the species rather than preserving it for its unique capabilities. As the sun began its final descent, the workers filed toward the collection station, carrying baskets overflowing with the purple tubers. Mira's shoulders ached from 14 hours in the fields. The Calvary measured productivity meticulously. Those who failed to meet quotas received reduced rations or worse. When Mira reached her designated barracks, a simple prefabricated structure housing 50 humans, she collapsed onto her narrow cot. The small room she shared with 3 other women offered little privacy, but tonight she was alone. The others were assigned to night maintenance on the irrigation systems. She reached beneath her thin mattress, fingers searching for the small object she discovered 3 days earlier while clearing debris from an abandoned pre-invasion structure. What had once been a museum was now a processing center, but in the basement, hidden beneath collapsed beams, she'd found something impossible. A still-functioning communication device of human design. The device was no larger than her palm, its surface unmarked except for a single button. Mira pressed it now, holding it close to her ear. For 2 nights, nothing had happened, but tonight a faint crackling sound emerged, followed by a voice so quiet she strained to hear it. "Protocol Alpha 7 Delta initiated. Confirmation required." Mira's heart raced. The voice was human, speaking without the distinctive harmonic undertones of the Calvary. She hesitated, then whispered, "Confirm." The device warmed slightly in her palm. Voice pattern recognized as human. Security clearance unknown. Limited transmission follows. They've kept their promise. The diaspora fleet approaches. Prepare for contact within 14 solar cycles. Maintain silence. Hope comes with the dawn. The message repeated once before the device went silent again. Mira sat motionless on her cot, mind racing. The diaspora, a word from the old stories, tales whispered by the elders who remembered the final days of the war. As the Calvary tightened their grip on Earth, thousands of ships had escaped, carrying nearly 30 million humans into deep space. The Kelveri had claimed they hunted down and destroyed the vessels, that no humans had survived beyond Earth's orbit. But the elders kept the story alive. The Evacuees had promised to return when they had gathered the strength and technology to challenge the Kelveri. For 73 years, that promise had seemed like fantasy. Now, holding the warm communication device, Mira felt something she hadn't experienced since childhood: hope. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and Mira quickly concealed the device. Her roommate Lynn entered, her slight frame stooped with exhaustion, irrigation fluid staining her standard-issue gray jumpsuit. "You should be sleeping," Lynn said, collapsing onto her own cot. "Early harvest tomorrow." Mira studied her friend carefully. Lynn had been born into captivity, never knowing a world without Kelveri dominance. Could she trust her with this information? The risk was enormous. Information sharing about potential resistance carried the harshest penalties. Entire barracks had been purified for less. "Lynn," Mira said softly, moving to sit beside her friend, "if I tell you something impossible, would you report it?" Lynn's eyes widened as she sat up. "What kind of question is that? We've known each other for 10 years. "They're coming back," Mira whispered, her lips barely moving. "The diaspora ships, the ones that escaped." Lynn's face remained expressionless, a survival skill all humans had developed. "That's a story for children, Mira. There's no one coming to save us. I have proof." Mira revealed the device, explaining in hushed tones what she'd heard. Lynn's skepticism gradually gave way to cautious curiosity. "If this is true," Lynn said finally, "we need to prepare, subtly, without drawing attention." The next 3 days passed in a blur of cautious conversations and secret planning. Mira and Lynn identified 5 others they believed trustworthy, sharing the message in fragments so no single person held too much information. Together, they began gathering supplies, medicine, extra rations, tools that could potentially serve as weapons. On the 4th night, the sky changed. The perpetual Kelveri orbital platforms, visible as bright points of light after sunset, began moving in unusual patterns. Additional ships appeared, their distinctive engine signatures creating new constellations above Earth's ravaged surface. The Kelveri overseers grew tense, their normally fluid movements becoming rigid and hurried. Additional guards appeared in the fields and living areas. Random searches of barracks became frequent. "They know something's coming," whispered Kai, an elderly man who had once been a military engineer before the invasion. He had been carefully observing the Kelveri communication patterns. "Their transmissions have tripled. Military codes I haven't seen them use before." News spread through the labor camps in coded phrases and subtle gestures. Humans working in different sectors reported similar Kelveri agitation. Something massive was approaching Earth's solar system, and the aliens were frightened. On the 10th day, the first visible sign appeared. During the brief rest period at midday, a brilliant flash of light erupted in the sky, visible even through the daytime haze, an explosion in orbit. Workers paused, heads tilting upward despite the risk of punishment. No announcement came from the overseers, but the explosion was followed by a large object trailing fire as it fell through the atmosphere, crashing somewhere beyond the eastern horizon. That evening, Commander Trax addressed the assembled workers, his voice modulating between the harmonic ranges that indicated severe stress in Kelveri communication. "Disruptive elements approach our protected space," he announced. "Terrorists and criminals who abandon this world now seek to disturb the peace we have established. Your productivity must increase to support defense operations. Any human found aiding these criminals will face immediate termination, along with their entire living unit." As the workers dispersed after the announcement, Mira's receiver crackled with unexpected interference. Through the static came fragments of an unauthorized transmission. "Earth resistance. Prepare. 7 days. Signal will. Freedom." The Kelveri detected the broadcast almost immediately. Alarm sirens wailed across the compound as security forces deployed, scanning for unauthorized communications. 3 workers were publicly executed that evening for receiving seditious transmissions, though Mira suspected they were randomly selected as examples. That night, lying sleepless in her bunk, Mira's receiver activated again. This time, the voice was clear and strong, overriding the Kelveri control frequencies. People of Earth, we are the diaspora. We have not forgotten our home or our promise. For 70 years we have grown stronger in the darkness between stars. We have made allies. We have built weapons. And now we have returned. The transmission continued despite frantic Kelveri attempts to block it. In 7 days, we will enter Earth's atmosphere. Be ready. Stay hidden until the signal comes. Then rise up. The long night of occupation ends with this dawn. The compound erupted in chaos as Kelveri security forces began mass arrests, dragging humans from their barracks. Mira and her small group used the confusion to slip away, retreating to an emergency hiding place they had prepared, a forgotten maintenance tunnel beneath the agricultural processing center. For 6 tense days, they remained hidden, emerging only at night to gather information and supplies. Reports filtered in from other sectors. Massive vessels had been detected at the edge of the solar system, moving steadily toward Earth. The vessels were of unknown design, neither human nor Kelveri in origin. On the 7th day, as the red sun rose, the sky darkened with ships. Not the sleek biological curves of Kelveri vessels, but massive angular constructions that reflected sunlight like burnished steel. They descended through the clouds in perfect formation, their approach silent and inexorable. The Kelveri defense platforms opened fire, energy weapons lancing upward. The new ships absorbed the attacks without visible damage, continuing their controlled descent. Then, as one, they responded, not with weapons, but with sound, a deep, resonant tone that vibrated through the ground, through buildings, through bone and flesh. Mira watched from her hiding place as the Kelveri in the compound collapsed, their sensitive neural systems overwhelmed by the precisely tuned acoustic attack. The humans, physiologically different enough to withstand the frequencies, remained conscious though disoriented. As the sound faded, smaller craft detached from the massive ships, landing in cleared areas throughout the compound. Their doors opened, revealing figures in sleek environmental suits. They moved with purpose, securing areas and approaching the confused humans who emerged from barracks and hiding places. One figure approached Mira's group, removing its helmet to reveal a human face, a woman with dark skin and eyes that reflected starlight. "I am Captain Ilara Hayes of the Earth Reclamation Force," she said, her voice carrying the strange accent of someone who had never breathed Earth's air. "We've come to fulfill an old promise." Behind her, more ships breached the atmosphere, their massive hulls blocking the sun as they positioned themselves over Kelveri control centers worldwide. The liberation of Earth had begun. The reckoning. Captain Ilara Hayes led Mira and her group across the compound toward one of the landed vessels. Around them, more humans emerged from hiding places, their expressions a mix of fear, confusion, and fragile hope. The Kelveri overseers lay incapacitated, their neural systems still overwhelmed by the acoustic attack. "We need to move quickly," Hayes explained as they approached the ship. "The sonic disruptors only affect their primary neural pathways. They'll recover within hours." The ship's interior was unlike anything Mira had ever seen. Sleek, with surfaces that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. Lights pulsed along pathways in the floor, and the air tasted clean in a way she had forgotten was possible. "This isn't human technology," Mira observed, running her hand along a wall that rippled slightly at her touch. Hayes smiled. "Not entirely, no. We've had 70 years and a lot of help." She gestured toward a circular chamber where several non-humans moved with purpose among holographic displays. The diaspora found allies among the stars, species who had their own grievances with the Kelveri Empire. The aliens turned as the humans entered. They stood nearly as tall as Kelveri, but were slender, with six-fingered hands and skin that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. Their large eyes had horizontal pupils that contracted slightly in the chamber's light. "These are the Novan," Hayes explained. "Their homeworld was stripped by Kelvary mining operations 30 Earth years ago. They've been our primary allies in developing the technology we needed to return." One of the Novan approached, its movements fluid and graceful. "The humans of Earth have suffered as our people suffered," it said, its voice creating harmonics that seemed to resonate in Mira's chest. "Today begins the liberation of both our worlds." Throughout the ship, screens displayed real-time footage from around the globe. Identical scenes played out across every continent. Kelvary forces incapacitated, diaspora ships landing, Earth humans emerging from captivity to meet their returning kin. "How many of you returned?" Mira asked, watching the coordinated operation unfold. 27 million left Earth," Hayes replied, her voice softening. "We're now over 100 million strong, spread across 17 worlds we've established beyond Kelvary space. We've brought back 10 million for the initial liberation force." Hayes led them to the ship's command center, where a large holographic projection showed Earth from orbit. Red indicators marked Kelvary strongholds. Blue lights signified deployed diaspora forces. "The Kelvary have ruled through technological superiority," Hayes explained. "But they've grown complacent, convinced of their dominance. While they were stationary, we were evolving, adapting, and most importantly, learning from civilizations far more advanced than either of us." She gestured to a portion of the hologram showing massive orbital structures. Their defense grid was designed to repel conventional attacks, kinetic weapons, energy beams, even nuclear devices. "Our ships employ phase shift technology developed by the Novan. We exist partially out of sync with normal spacetime, making their weapons largely ineffective against us." A technician approached, handing Hayes a datapad. Her expression darkened as she reviewed the information. "The Kelvary High Command has retreated to their primary citadel in what was once Beijing," she said. "They're activating their planetary defense system, atmospheric ionization that will prevent our ships from maintaining their phase shift state." "How long do we have?" asked Kai, the former engineer. "Less than 3 hours before the system is fully operational. Once it's active, our technological advantage is significantly reduced." Hayes turned to address not just Mira's group, but the growing number of Earth humans gathered in the command center. "This is where we need your help," she said. "The Kelvary never anticipated an attack from within. Their security systems are focused outward. Earth humans can move through their facilities in ways we cannot." Kai stepped forward. "I worked in maintenance at a defense installation before being reassigned to agriculture. I know their systems, or at least I knew them 20 years ago." Others volunteered similar knowledge. Fragments of understanding about Kelvary technology and procedures gathered through decades of servitude. Hayes nodded, directing them to intelligence officers who began collating their information. "We need strike teams," Hayes explained. "Small groups who can infiltrate key facilities and disable crucial systems before the planetary defense grid activates." Mira found herself volunteering alongside Lin and several others from their compound. They were quickly equipped with communication devices and small weapons, not guns, but devices that emitted focused sonic pulses modulated to disrupt Kelvary neural pathways without harming humans. "You'll be guided by our tactical eye," Hayes explained, showing them how to use the neural interface devices. "These will provide real-time translation of Kelvary systems and communications." Within an hour, dozens of strike teams were deployed across the globe, targeting power distribution nodes, communication hubs, and security installations. Mira's team was assigned to a nearby facility that controlled agricultural production and resource allocation for 3 states, a secondary target, but one that would disrupt Kelvary logistics if disabled. As they approached the facility in a small transport craft, Mira saw the true scale of the conflict unfolding. Massive diaspora warships hovered above major Kelvary strongholds, their hulls reflecting sunlight as they maintained position. Smaller craft engaged Kelveri aerial vehicles that had managed to launch, brief flashes of light marking the destruction of alien ships. "The main Kelveri fleet is stationed near Saturn," explained their pilot, a young woman born in the colonies. "Our forces are engaging them there to prevent reinforcements from reaching Earth. That's where the real battle is happening." The agricultural facility was in chaos when they arrived. Kelveri workers rushed to secure systems and destroy data, aware that something catastrophic was occurring but receiving conflicting orders from their command structure. Most of the human laborers had already fled or were hiding within the complex. Guided by the tactical AI, Mira's team moved through service corridors and maintenance tunnels, avoiding the main security forces. Lin, who had worked in the facility before being reassigned to field labor, led them to the central control hub. "The primary systems are through here," she whispered, indicating a sealed door. "But it will be guarded." Kai examined the security panel. "The Kelveri never changed their fundamental algorithms," he said with grim satisfaction. "Predictability is part of their psychology." His fingers moved across the panel, bypassing the security protocols with surprising ease. Beyond the door, 3 Kelveri technicians worked frantically at control stations. They turned as the humans entered, reaching for weapons. Mira activated her sonic disruptor, watching as the aliens collapsed, their neural systems overloaded. "We have 15 minutes before they're able to move again," Kai said, moving quickly to the main control console. "Let's make it count." With guidance from the tactical AI, they began shutting down systems and inserting override commands that would prevent remote reactivation. As they worked, information flooded their neural interfaces. Similar operations were occurring worldwide, gradually dismantling the infrastructure that had allowed a relatively small number of Kelveri to control billions of humans. "Look at this," Lin called, pointing to a monitor showing a massive energy buildup at the Beijing Citadel. "They're diverting power from everywhere to accelerate the defense grid activation." Their tactical AI confirmed. Planetary defense grid at 67% activation and accelerating. Estimated time to full operational status, 42 minutes. Kai's hands flew across the control interfaces. "I can reroute power from this sector's distribution node, create a cascading failure that might buy us a few more minutes." As he worked, the facility's emergency systems activated, blaring alarms and sealing compartments. "Security protocols initiated," announced the facility's AI in the melodic Kelveri language. "Human insurgency detected. Lethal countermeasures authorized." "We've been compromised," Lin warned. "We need to move." They finished the sabotage operation as security drones converged on their location. Racing through the corridors, they barely reached their transport before the facility's automated defenses opened fire. Their pilot executed a series of evasive maneuvers that sent them hurtling skyward, away from the pursuing drones. "All teams be advised." Hayes' voice came through their neural interfaces. "Kelveri High Command has initiated Protocol Terminus. They're preparing to activate scorched earth contingencies." The implications were clear. Rather than accept defeat, the Kelveri would destroy what they couldn't hold. Similar reports flooded in from teams worldwide. Self-destruct sequences initiated in major facilities, terraforming engines being repurposed to release toxic compounds into the atmosphere, orbital platforms repositioning to rain destruction on population centers. "We've awakened the beast," Kai muttered. "They'll destroy the planet before surrendering it." Their transport rejoined a diaspora warship hovering above what had once been Chicago. On the command deck, Hayes and her officers coordinated the rapidly evolving global operation. "The Beijing Citadel is the key," Hayes explained, indicating the massive structure on the holographic display. "All the fail-safe protocols are controlled from there. If we can neutralize it, we can prevent planetary devastation." "But the defense grid is nearly active," a Novan officer observed. "Our ships won't be able to approach once it's operational." Hayes nodded grimly. "Which is why we're implementing our contingency." She turned to address the assembled team. We always knew this might happen. The Kelveri psychology includes a specific trait. They cannot accept defeat. It's why they've never lost a conquered world before. She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show a massive vessel moving into Earth orbit. Unlike any of the other diaspora ships, its design was organic and irregular, nearly twice the size of the largest warships. "This is the reckoning," Hayes said. "For 70 years we've built it in secret, incorporating technologies from a dozen alien civilizations. It carries our answer to the Kelveri defense grid." As they watched, the vessel oriented itself above the Beijing citadel. Sections of its hull reconfigured, forming what appeared to be a massive focusing array. Energy readings spiked off the measurement scales. The Kelveri defense grid creates a specific resonance pattern in spacetime, Hayes explained. The reckoning doesn't fight against it. It amplifies it, redirects it, turns their own protection into a weapon. The ship released a pulse of energy unlike anything Mira had ever seen. Not a beam or explosion, but a rippling distortion that flowed downward toward the citadel. Where it passed, the very air seemed to fold and unfold, as if reality itself was being rewritten. When it reached the citadel, the massive structure didn't explode or collapse. Instead, it simply shifted. The molecular bonds holding it together temporarily altered frequency, causing the entire complex to dissolve into its component particles before reforming in a chaotic, non-functional arrangement. In an instant, the heart of Kelveri control on Earth was transformed into an abstract sculpture of its former self, its technology rendered useless without a shot being fired. "Target neutralized," reported a technician. "Defense grid initialization aborted. Fail-safe protocols disconnected." A cheer erupted through the command center. On screens throughout the ship, similar celebrations broke out among liberation forces worldwide. The tactical network reported Kelveri forces everywhere laying down arms or retreating to their remaining ships. In orbit, the battle continued, the Kelveri fleet fighting desperately to reach Earth and extract their leadership. But without the planetary defenses, they were outmatched by the diaspora forces and their alien allies. 3 days later, Mira stood with Hayes on a hilltop overlooking the reclaimed agricultural facility. Workers, both Earth humans and diaspora volunteers, were already reconfiguring the alien crops, preparing to replace them with Earth species preserved in orbital seed banks. "What happens now?" Mira asked, watching the activity below. "Rebuilding," Hayes replied simply. "It will take decades to undo what the Kelveri did to Earth's ecosystems, but we brought the technology and resources to start the process." "And the Kelveri?" Hayes' expression hardened slightly. "Their remaining forces have retreated beyond the Kuiper Belt. The Novan and our other allies are pursuing them back to their home systems." She paused. "This victory has shattered their aura of invincibility. Already, rebellions are breaking out on other occupied worlds." In the distance, a massive ship descended through the clouds, a colony vessel bringing more returnees and the supplies needed for reconstruction. Similar scenes were playing out around the globe as the diaspora fulfilled its promise, bringing home not just liberation but renewal. "The Kelveri never understood us," Hayes said softly. "They saw our fractured nations, our conflicts, our apparent weakness, and thought us easy prey. They didn't realize that humans are at their most dangerous when pushed to the edge of extinction." She handed Mira a small device, a neural interface like those used by the diaspora forces. "We need people who know Earth, who understand what's been lost, and what can be saved. Will you help us?" Mira accepted the device, feeling its weight in her palm, a symbol of both technology and trust. The stories we told about the ones who escaped, who promised to return, they kept hope alive during the darkest times. She looked up at the ships overhead, no longer alien and threatening, but symbols of humanity's resilience. "Now we get to write the next chapter." As the red sun set on the first week of Earth's liberation, news arrived from the outer system. The Kelveri fleet had been decisively defeated at the edge of the solar system. Their remaining vessels, had initiated emergency FTL jumps, fleeing toward their home territory. That night, celebrations erupted in human settlements worldwide. For the first time, in 73 years, Earth belonged to its native species again. And throughout the galaxy, the message spread among spacefaring civilizations. Humanity had returned, bringing with them ships that had defeated the undefeatable Kelvari Empire. The balance of power among the stars had shifted irreversibly. In the remnants of the Beijing Citadel, now repurposed as a memorial and museum, the first exhibit was being prepared. It contained only a simple display, a small communication device identical to the one Mira had found, alongside a recorded message that had been broadcast to countless human vessels as they fled Earth decades earlier. We will return. However long it takes, whatever we must become, we will reclaim our home. This is humanity's promise to Earth. This is our promise to ourselves. The promise had been kept, and the galaxy would never be the same.